now. So we see F91 spawning at the bottom left position, and we have our good friend Liquid NonY spawning at the top right. You know, I really think that macro early is going to be the good play on this map for Zerg. I mean, I'm going to say that, and I'm sure F91 is going to do like the exact opposite. Anything that's sort of oriented towards more hatcheries early, I really like on this map. I also don't object to doing something like 9 pooling after Overlord, so that way you can force the Protoss player to make a little more cannons early, and then Zerg can kind of hold off those pesky scouting probes early on. But other than that, I always think it is very beneficial to play a little more of a long game, or a long-term game plan. And wow, look at this, NonY building his first pylon in his main. Now, just this first pylon is a beautiful illustration of the wide range of options that Protoss have on this map. On Andromeda, for example, Protoss pretty much have to early expand or build 2 gateways to the bottom of the ramp. They can't really do much else. However, because you have a nice ramp that you can walk down and take an expansion, as well as a nice little expansion in your back door, a lot of Protosses actually like to open up with a fast Corsair or a fast gas style play, which seems to be what NonY's doing in this game. F91, for the first time ever, is making a pool after 12 food. Who'd have thought? Looks like he, for the first time ever, is going to be expanding on 12 like a good normal Zerg should. And NonY, is NonY 2-gating? Okay, I'm not sure if I like this as much. I think that maybe... Okay, now that I have had 4 seconds of time to think, I actually like this a lot more. I'm so used to seeing games like Andromeda and stuff, where Protoss is 2-gate at the bottom of their ramp and then build the Nexus behind. But the problem with doing that is that you have to build the 4s and then make some cannons and then make the Nexus, and then, you know, your tech's kind of delayed and you have to play a little more defensively. If you 2-gate on top of your ramp, you can just hold your entrance and then expand to your back door. And then when you get more units, you can expand to your front door. So NonY's sort of reversing the traditional play on this map. Instead of taking your front, defending that, and then taking your back, he's going to play really aggressively from the start, knowing he has this nice safe expansion in the back. And for the first time in his entire life, F91 is hatching before his pool. As a result, this 2-gate is going to have a lot more potency to it. Now, I've played many games against NonY where he's gone 2 gates, and he smashes me violently badly. So I have a huge amount of faith that this is going to do quite a lot of damage. I really think that Zerg, kind of the old school way to hold off 2-gate is the way that we see F91 holding it off. He's going to send a bunch of drones down his ramp, and he's going to build a bunch of sunken colonies right now, and hopefully he'll lose 1 or 2, but 1 sunken colony will finish, and then with the extra Zerglings he'll be able to get through. And we do see the Zealot and the Probe going there right now. What I think a lot of Zerg players are doing more recently is trying to squeeze in a 3rd hatch before this attack. But look at this, we have some Zerglings coming down, and see, here is the 1 sunken colony that F91 wants to finish. NonY brilliantly brought this sunken colony to just over 100 life, so only 1 more hit will kill it when it pops into a sunken colony. We do see that sunken down. Now, interestingly, NonY is doing exactly what I said he shouldn't. He's expanding to his front. It's not that this is necessarily good or bad, this is just not what I expected. And I don't really like being wrong, so... so damn you, NonY. Either way, right now we have F91 has his expansion running, but note that there are no drones mining, and we have these 2 sunken colonies. That was really not a huge attack commitment for NonY, but it was sort of a big setback for F91. Yeah, F91 is able to take the back of his main, and we do see some gas going down, things playing out normally, but this really is the kind of play that NonY wants, where he's already put Zerg kind of at the kind of, you know, back on his hind leg, rearing, getting ready for an attack or something like that. NonY's just going to happily expand and not worry about it too much. Now, hopefully, there's these 5 Zerglings outside NonY's base. Hopefully, it's not going to be something like these 5 Zerglings run in and NonY decides that he doesn't want to try anymore and quits. We'll have a repeat of our Blue Storm game. But, in any case, I really like the way that this game is playing out for NonY in particular. This is like a really tough spot for Zerg to be in. But see, right now Zerg is playing out normally. He's getting this layer up, and it's kind of following the play of Game 1, where you have 3 bases and 3 hatches, and a layer coming down for a really fast spire. The problem I always encounter when I'm against a 2-gate player is that I'm a little uncomfortable with the size of the player's army and when the Zerg player or when the Protoss can and can't attack. Like, for example, right now, look at this. NonY's moving out with a big Zealot force. Oh, but F91 has counterattacking Zerglings. Oh, look out. Here come 5 Zerglings. Now, these are going to be hugely beneficial because it's just going to slow NonY down. We see 2 Stargates going down for NonY. This is an interesting play. NonY clustering his probes, moving them around, trying to hold off these Zerglings. The Zerglings are really slowing down the economy, but if we take a fast-forward look down, go down to F91's natural, we see a bunch of Zealots just attacking. They're going to move in and move back, forcing F91 to make more and more sunken colonies, continuing to put the pressure on F91. But these probes, though they killed the Zerglings, lost a lot of their numbers. And you know, I think this is a really, really interesting choice of transitions for NonY to get these 2 Stargates. This is why I think that 2-gate play should start coming back a little more recently. I just love the way that you can transition around with it if you get an early advantage. I mean, we've seen NonY pushing around with these Zealots at the front of F91's base, and now we have 2 Stargate Corsair coming out. This is just going to be a giant pain in the butt for a good old F91 Zerg player. And after this, even F91's going to be asking for some of that bailout money. I mean, he's going to be cramped against the wall for cash, losing all his overlords, having to make so many sunken colonies, so many Zerglings. And really, F91 doesn't even have that much of a clear game plan right now. He's playing purely defensively. We see more Zealots coming in. Look at this. There's 2 Zealots going for that back sunken colony. This is just the brilliant timing by NonY, just totally screwing with F91, moving in and moving out and doing weird tech switches that are totally screwing with the expectations of F91. Only now do we have a forge going down for NonY. Until this point, NonY has defended all his expansions adequately by just having enough ground units and by putting enough pressure on F91 that F91 didn't even feel comfortable attacking. And now with all these Corsairs on the way, it's going to be really tough for F91 to really push back against NonY. I mean, this is the key difference between a winning player and a losing player. Is an example game like this, where right now everything that F91's doing is a defensive play. He's getting Overlord speed to hold off those Corsairs. He's getting a Hydralisk because he needs to help hold off those Corsairs. I don't see anything coming down the road that will allow him to put pressure back on NonY. Meanwhile, NonY is making Zealots and Corsairs, and he's really pushing into F91's face and using this as an opportunity to take more expansions and continue to just kind of scout around F91's base and keep that drone count nice and low. Finally, we do get some Hydralisk speed for F91, and things are starting to balance out a little bit more, but NonY still is having a great time. I mean, we see this, we see more cannons going down his front, and right now we have a Templar Archives coming, and because NonY's been sticking to just 2 gateways for so long, he has looks like 800 Vespian gas. This will allow him to get a whole bunch of Templar. Now, we do see this sort of cutely timed counterattack by F91. I'm not sure if it's going to work, but this is signature F91 play. F91 will always try to see if he can be a little more aggressive. Just taking a good opportunity to do that. He doesn't commit himself, which is the hallmark of strong aggressive players versus weak ones, is that the good players check to see if they can go for the kill, and aggressive players that are weaker just kind of try to go for the kill haphazardly and end up losing games. So if you actually go to F91's natural, we see that that sunken colony that was originally used for defense was actually screwing up his mining. Consequently, we see that F91 has killed it off himself. So look at the power of psychological warfare. F91's killing his own units because of this 2-gate opening. Right now we see NonY hasn't taken his back expansion, but I'm sure that we're going to see that real soon. We don't have more gateways being added on yet, so he's clearly just going to be using his gas for Templar and saving up that money for an expansion. With all these Corsairs out, now is a good time for this Dark Templar. We see this Dark Templar now sort of wandering through the middle of the map. This is a perfect way to continue on NonY's theme of map control. He's been putting a ton of pressure on Zerg, getting all these Corsairs and screwed with Zerg even more, and right when Zerg gets enough Hydralisks and sunken colonies to push back a 2-gate assault, we now have Corsairs and Dark Templar wandering around the map. And oh, if you look at this expansion in the middle of the map, we see the Dark Templar there, happily going to try to kill a drone. Again, NonY just continuing to have control, despite now only having 2 gateways, just sort of a minimal number of units. And we do see this backdoor nexus going down for NonY. and a bunch of lurkers going down for F91. F91 just trying to play this out as standardly as he can, and oh darn, that Dark Templar at the center expansion didn't manage to kill off that drone. Little things like that are what really put players tremendously ahead. So right now NonY's still sticking to 2 gateways, and he's getting robotics facility just on those 2 gateways. This is actually a nice little sort of timing that I'll talk about after we talk about how these Corsairs are running amok in NonY's main. Look at this. This is so great. Not only does F91 have to worry about all these Corsairs wandering around the map all the time, and as a result he has to position all his overlords together in a protected clump. It also prevents F91 from doing enough aggressive maneuvers, because he has to spend so much effort defending those overlords with his big Hydra army instead of attacking with it. Either way, F91 still, we see positioning a huge Lurker Hydra army in the middle of the map, going in for a kill. Oh my god, he runs in to try to snipe the Templar, but NonY does a Ninja Storm right off. And look at this, again, here's this great timing by NonY. He throws down the robotics bay and then starts adding on gateways over his initial 2. Then he's going to come out with a big attack all at once. But F91 is trying to kill him right before this critical moment. Great storms by NonY, clearly well defended with those 4 cannons. Although F91 was able to put a little bit of pressure on there, it's just not nearly enough to knock down the massive Protoss wall that is NonY. And look at this, F91's running in even more with these lurkers. And these zealots are on hold position because they don't want to risk running out into that lurker field. My god, it looks like F91's going to run in here and break this. An Archon morphing and 2 more lurkers coming up. Oh my god, this High Templar just needs 2 more energy for a storm. And there it is! Killing off the lurker. That just completely decimated the bulk of F91's army. And we see some backup Dragoons coming in to help. But more and more Hydras flooding into NonY's main. Look at this beautiful aggressive play by F91. He knows just the right times to attack. And if you go look at F91's natural, F91 is sitting happy at 22 food max, at 14 food max. No overlords anywhere in sight for F91. And right now it looks like the expansion of NonY is going to fall. However, NonY has killed off so many overlords. It's a really tough position for F91 to be in regardless. I mean, F91 is getting to kill off this expansion. But hopefully, if NonY can hold off this attack, he can just push back with a big ground army and end up taking a win. We see the Robo Bay going down again in NonY's main because NonY lost that at the front of his base. And get this, NonY doesn't even have a forge. He has to rebuild that too. And these Hydras for F91 are at +1/+1, a really nice, strong Hydra army. Corsair's still wandering around the map trying to kill off as many overlords as possible because that's going to be the whole key for NonY to get back into this game. And look at this. All those juicy overlords sitting right there, but there's just too many Hydralisks. And NonY eventually has to back off. Finally, once he got in positive food, F91 was able to make a huge chunk of drones. This is exactly what you want to be doing as Zerg. NonY is trying to come back into this game with killing off all these overlords. But notice what F91 did. He made this huge attack, killed off NonY's expansion, and what did F91 do? He made a bunch of drones. That is what makes a good Zerg player. When a Zerg player is having a huge lead against his Protoss opponent, or even against his Terran opponent, rather than try to keep making units and shove in, he just makes a ton of drones and continues to expand and get his economy up more and more. Because right now, NonY's stuck on 2 bases and has to do a massive, gigantic, extremely effective counterattack if he wants to win this game at all. I mean, right now it looks like NonY is a little over 100 food, and F91's still stuck at 74 in red food. There still is not best position for NonY because he has so much food that was devoted to Corsairs. NonY's big army walking down his ramp. We see +2 attack being researched and 7 gateways just flooding units. This is going to be the key attack for NonY. It looks like we don't have too many lurkers for F91, but he does have a butt ton of gas. Oh, there is a bazillion lurkers going down. That is the most annoying thing in the world for a Protoss player, is when the Zerg just has so many lurkers it doesn't even make sense. So we see this big army coming down for NonY. NonY's really going to have to throw down some big key storms. The problem is, if you look at the front of NonY's natural expansion, there's a whole bunch of key units there. 3 evolution chambers, 2 hatches, and just 1 spore colony to defend it all. F91's going to have to do a really good job of burrowing these lurkers here and holding. I mean, if F91 loses this big army, it's just going to be game. Here comes NonY's big army moving into attack. 1 good storm, but here's 12 lurkers coming in from behind. All those get burrowed, and they go right for NonY's... Oh my god, NonY does a Beautiful job of storming. I thought he was going to lose all those zealots to those lurkers, but NonY proving me wrong, running in with a big army, but no more Templar anywhere in sight. Oh, there's 2 Templar coming in from the back. Here comes a great storm from NonY, and he's killing off all these lurkers. Oh, no, he lost his observer. NonY instead going for this vulnerable patch I just mentioned. All these hatcheries and evolution chambers are now going down. F91 trying to make something of it by running in with his lurkers from the backside, but there's just units flooding in from the middle, and now these overlords all falling. There's just so much disorganization for F91, he can't handle it, and is saying GG with a happy face. And that is the sort of GG you see from an opponent who is already up 3. Wow, that was a great game. That just really shows the aggressive ability of F91 and the solid, excellent decision-making of NonY. I mean, even though we've seen NonY play very standard in those first 3 games, I love 2-gate play. I just think it's great, especially on maps that allow for it. I mean, if you open with that sort of 2-gate play, you can end up putting weird sorts of pressures on Zerg. I mean, like in the games I've played against NonY, there are times when I thought, okay, now I can make drones in power. Now I'm ready to just hold for a little while. Yet, NonY would come out with these weirdly timed attacks, which is exactly what we saw against F91. And F91, even though he got screwed with violently in the opening game, he still managed to figure out a timing window to counterattack NonY and take out that expansion. I think perhaps the one mistake I would have faulted NonY for is that he got those 2 Stargates and didn't quite produce constantly out of them. I think 1 Stargate would have sufficed. I assume that NonY was thinking to himself, oh, you know, if my opponent ends up getting a bunch of Mutalisks, I want to make sure I can roll over that with ease. I don't want to have to be up against a wall the way I was in Andromeda. So in that regard, I think that's fine. But even so, brilliant play by F91 and brilliant play by NonY. Note that even though F91 made this aggressive counterattack to NonY, NonY didn't panic. He used his overlords to keep pounding F91 into the ground, and even though this attack did a really good job of killing off NonY's front and putting big pressure on NonY still, it was almost as though that was incorporated into NonY's plan. Yeah, if I get attacked and lose my natural, I can kill off all your overlords, and then when my next big attack comes out, you won't be able to hold it off, which is precisely what we saw in that last game. Beautifully played job by NonY. I just think that's fantastic. So now we have coming up Tau Cross, which is a map that I've heard a lot of people say that it favors Zerg, but I think it's just a very, very balanced map. I really like the way it plays out for both races. Even though the only truly legitimate option for Protoss is to early expand, I think that there's just so many options that Protoss can do afterwards, and it's just you end up with these these really fun big map control, big army type plays when by both players. I mean, a really great example of this is Bisu versus By-Hero on Tau Cross in the Pro League match between STX and SKT1. I mean, just a brilliant play by Bisu, just managing to take out his expansion really early and putting pressure on his opponent with this sort of early Corsair, then transition to Templar play, and By-Hero opened with this sort of weirdly timed hatchery setup, and then he ended up with just this massive army. So I'm really hoping that we can see that sort of play in the late game. At the same time, it's so great that there's no ramps and it's a big wide open map, and you get all these really cool counterattack paths, and you get these Protoss players who make tons of zealots and do these really aggressive pushes all across the game. So I just think this is one of my favorite maps of all time, in particular in Zerg vs. Zerg, because I can go Hydros on it. Ha ha ha. Alright, enough self-promotion, but still, it's just like the coolest thing in the world. So with that in mind, let us begin Game 5 of F91 vs. NonY on Tau Cross.